Trigger is right around the corner, and I'm sure a lot of you are getting ready to dump all your polychromes on her, myself included of course, but you might want to reconsider getting her because surprisingly, she isn't actually a particularly strong character. If for some reason you don't know what Trigger does, she'll be our next electric stunner who can attack while off field, doing some coordinated attacks whenever the active character attacks. Her gameplay boils down to holding down the basic attack button to fill up her special gauge and switching to your main DPS afterwards. She really doesn't need that much field time. In case you'd like to know more about her kit, feel free to check my guide I made on her in the description below or in the pinned comment of course. In any case, as for what Trigger actually brings to the table, just like I mentioned before, Trigger is a stunner, and not only that, but she also deals damage while she's off field, making it so you can constantly stay on your attacker. She also makes the enemy take 35% more damage at all times as long as she is hitting them with her coordinated attack. This 35% increased damage is technically a stun damage bonus, but it's also active outside the stun period. Honestly, I have no idea why they decided to word it like this. It just makes it more confusing than it needs to be, but I digress. But as you can see, Trigger really doesn't offer anything that amazing. She is what I'd like to call a comfort unit. She is a very passive unit that increases your damage just by having her on the team, and apparently according to people who have access to the creator server, having Trigger on your team is basically the same as using Nicole or Astra. Of course, Nicole can be somewhat of a drag to use, since you do need to be constantly applying her defense shred, so she's not as easy to use as Trigger. And since Astra doesn't offer anything that special like Astra's healing or even Caesar's shields, it really feels like it might not be worth going for her, especially since Nicole can be almost as good as Trigger. Another thing that makes Trigger somewhat of an awkward pick is the fact that she really wants to be off field. Because of this, she is not as universal as someone as Astra or Caesar, since not all DPS characters want to stay on the field at all times. Some of them would much rather get on the field once the enemy is actually stunned. Because of that, Trigger is currently only really good with Silver and Ambia, of course, Evelyn and Miyabi, since those characters really want to be constantly attacking. But even with those characters, you could use a different kind of supporting character like Yanagi and Astra for Miyabi, for example. With all that said, Trigger could be very useful if you are missing characters like Astra and Caesar, since she can stand in for them pretty easily, and she could also work as a substitute for one of those characters in case you do want to use them on a different team. And one last thing I haven't mentioned is her signature engine, of course. In case you haven't seen, her engine is incredibly busted on her. That much should be obvious, since that's usually the case for most signature weapons, but in this situation it really skyrockets her performance. Her signature engine will give her a 24% critical rate. This is important since she gets more days from this because of her core passive, making it way easier to reach the threshold of 90% critical rate for the max days possible. And on top of that, it reduces the enemy's defense by 25% and increases her impact by an extra 20%. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of stuff. And because of this, she'll be stunning the enemies much more quickly and will increase your DPS's damage output by a ridiculous amount. A YouTuber by the name of I Am Rivness made a really great video explaining all of this. I really recommend you guys checking it in case you guys are interested. Of course, even if you do decide to get Trigger but not her engine, it doesn't mean she'll be a bad character. The game isn't hard enough to require that amount of damage output, and Trigger will be just fine without it, just like any character is without their signature weapon. And this, everyone, is everything you might want to know before pulling for Trigger. With all said and done, you should still do what you think is best for your account, and even if you don't need her, you might still want her just because of how good she looks, and at the end of the day, you should do what you think would be the most fun for you. But that's just one man's opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, thank you for the memberships, and I'll see you all in the next video.